have a direct quote from the President of the United States on NATO, and I will share it with all of you. They were tested and they failed. And I would add, it's quite sad that NATO turned their backs on the American people over the course of the last 6 weeks when it's the American people who have been funding their defense. As you know, President Trump will be meeting with Secretary Ruta in a couple of hours here at the White House, and I know he looks forward to having a very frank and candid conversation with him.
We have massive announcements in terms of Iran, the United States, the ceasefire, the fake news, the misinformation. It's getting out of control. The Strait of Hormuz is open, but it's closed. What the heck is going on? All of the answers to all your possible questions about what is happening with this conflict, with this war, with the ceasefire is answered in this video. I really hope for your benefit that you stick around for the entire thing so you can understand what is going on, because Caroline Leavitt just did a press conference and she clears the air on all of the topics, and then we have a bunch of other news, a bunch of other updates and other clips to take a look at. So again, sit back, relax, hit the like, subscribe, and let's get right into the news, shall we? Starting off with, well, an announcement that America, in the next few hours, like later today, we will know if the United States pulls out of NATO, but you're going to want to stick around for more context on that later in this video. Here we go. Israel Prime Minister Netanyahu says that Iran's enriched uranium will be removed by one of two ways, either an agreement or by war. Then you have Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt reaffirming that. Let's have a listen.
This is on the top of the priority list for the president and his negotiating team as they head into this next round of discussions. And as I said in my opener, that is a red line that the president is not going to back away from. And he's committed to ensuring that takes place. We hope it will be through diplomacy.
Have they given any indication that they would turn it over?
They have.
They have.
Yes.
Man, this is just, it's heating up. It's heating up so quickly. But we've got way more news. Iran fires 17 ballistic missiles and 35 drones at the UAE today, breaking their ceasefire. I don't know, man. I made a video late last night, like I saw a comment. So yesterday the ceasefire was announced, and there was one person in particular who saw that video, and then they get in their car and they're driving to the grocery store. They're driving home from work. By the time they get home, I had released another video announcing that Iran broke the ceasefire because they started attacking Israel. And now Israel's retaliating. It's just crazy what's going on. I mean, come on. Why are we all so focused on blowing each other up? Right? What the hell's going on here?
Andrew, I think you should take a look at the actions of this president over the course of the past 6 weeks and the actions of our brave men and women in our United States military who have taken out essentially taken out the military of a rogue Islamic regime that has chanted death to America for 47 years, that has killed and maimed thousands.
They are terrorists. I don't know what else to say. Have you ever heard the saying, we don't negotiate with terrorists? That used to be a real thing because terrorists know one thing: terror. Terrorists don't come back. There's no integrating terrorists with society again. America's not Canada. Don't bring that progressive shit into America, okay? Canada believes you can reintegrate people and change people, and all the terrorists, kumbaya, come to Canada. No. Don't do that, okay? Terrorists are terrorists are terrorists.
Of American soldiers over the course of the last 5 decades. The president absolutely has the moral high ground over the Iranian terrorist regime, and for you to even suggest otherwise is frankly insulting.
Yeah, obviously, President Trump has a moral high ground over freaking terrorists, okay? It's just getting crazy what's going on. A lot of people that are watching these videos, I noticed in the comments in both of yesterday's videos, a lot of people that are watching the videos, and correct me if I'm wrong, a lot of people want to see the regime completely flattened. That's not to say nuke the entire country of Iran. No, I mean, that's a little extreme, I would say. That's quite extreme for right now. But even on Fox News yesterday, a lot of professional analysts, a lot of people in the comments were saying, no, they've been creating terror, causing terror for 40 some years. Get rid of them now. So let me know what you guys think. Do you think that President Trump should get rid of all the terrorists, or do you think that there should be a deal because, you know, terrorists are for sure going to agree not to continue enriching uranium? Let's have a look at this clip.
Well, Dana, the president's announcements have been addressing the ceasefire between Iran and the United States and, in general, peace here in the Middle East. But we can report today there is not peace here. In fact, the country we're in, the UAE, says it's been taking incoming fire from Iran, writing the UAE's air defenses are currently engaging with missile and drone attacks originating from Iran. The Ministry of Defense confirms that the sounds heard in various parts of the country are the result of the UAE air defense systems intercepting ballistic missiles, cruise missiles, and drones. Also, Kuwait reporting the Kuwaiti air defenses have been dealing since 8 a.m. today and up to now with an intense wave of hostile Iranian criminal attacks where 28 drones were intercepted that targeted the state of Kuwait. Now, the IRGC claims it struck strategic targets in multiple countries in overnight strikes, including Israel and Saudi Arabia. And video from Tehran appears to show Iranians celebrating last night's news of the ceasefire. Now, President Trump indicated in his Truth post that the two-week ceasefire deal would include the U.S. and Iran stopping aggression on each other, but so far it does not appear that Iran has agreed to stop attacking other countries. In one of President Trump's most recent updates, he addresses one of the key topics, Iran's uranium, writing, "The United States will work closely with Iran, which we have determined has gone through what will be a very productive regime change. There will be no enrichment of uranium, and the United States will, working with Iran, dig up and remove all of the deeply buried B-2 bombers." Now, Iran is reportedly demanding that the United States accepts that it will continue its enrichment of uranium. So it's going to be interesting to see how that particular issue plays out in the ongoing negotiations. Dana?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how many people actually trust Iran to, be able to cooperate with this kind of deal, with not chasing enriched uranium. It just feels like terrorists are terrorists. But let's move on, shall we? U.S. Vice President J.D. Vance and Steve Witkoff to visit Pakistan for talks with Iran later this weekend. Yeah, I mean, J.D. Vance has been playing a significant role in these negotiations, as we're about to hear from Caroline Levin.
Well, Vice President Vance has played a very significant and a key role in this since the very beginning. Of course, he's the president's right-hand man. He is the vice president of the United States. He's been involved in all of these discussions, and as I just announced, he'll be leading this new phase of negotiations in Islamabad later this week. With respect to China, there were conversations that took place between top levels of our government and China's government. The president has great respect for President Xi and a great working relationship with him and with that country, and he looks forward to visiting China in just a few weeks.
Whoa, I mean, that's going to be huge within itself, right? That's going to be pretty big. But isn't China funding part of this stuff with Iran? Aren't they the ones that are, giving Iran their ballistic missiles and selling them their weapons? I could be wrong. Or I could be right. I don't know. White House says that Iran's published 15-point ceasefire plan was not the deal agreed to pause the war. Oh, my goodness. Who's lying? Who's telling the truth? What the hell's going on?
The valiant efforts of all of our incredible service members created maximum leverage for the President of the United States, allowing he and his leadership team to engage in tough negotiations over the past couple of weeks that have now created an opening for a diplomatic solution and long-term peace in the Middle East. The president's maximum pressure and the leverage created by the success of Operation Epic Fury led to the Iranian regime asking for and ultimately agreeing to a ceasefire proposal with the United States. Iran could no longer tolerate being bombed or taking the gamble of what was to come following President Trump's 8 p.m. deadline last night. Iran has agreed to open the Strait of Hormuz, and as the president said, we have received a proposal from the Iranians that has been determined to be a workable basis on which to negotiate. I've seen a lot of inaccurate coverage today from the media about these negotiations and these plans already, so let me be clear and correct the record. The Iranians originally put forward a 10-point plan that was fundamentally unserious, unacceptable, and completely discarded. It was literally thrown in the garbage by President Trump and his negotiating team. Many outlets in this room have falsely reported on that plan as being acceptable to the United States, and that is false. With the president's deadline fast approaching and the United States military completely decimating Iran with each passing hour, the regime acknowledged reality to the negotiating team. They put forward a more reasonable and entirely different and condensed plan to the president and his team. President Trump and the team determined the new modified plan was a workable basis on which to negotiate and to align it with our own 15-point proposal. The president's red lines, namely the end of Iranian enrichment in Iran, have not changed. And the idea that President Trump would ever accept an Iranian wish list as a deal is completely absurd. The president will only make a deal that serves in the best interests of the United States of America, and he as a negotiating team will focus on this effort over the next 2 weeks, so long as the Strait of Hormuz remains open with no limitations or delays. These extraordinarily sensitive and complex negotiations will take place behind closed doors over the course of the next 2 weeks. I would strongly advise the media against running with narratives that have no basis in fact. What Iran says publicly or feeds to all of you in the press is much different than what they communicate to the United States, the president, and his team privately. Never underestimate President Trump's ability to successfully advance America's interests and broker peace. President Trump has a proven track record of achieving good deals on behalf of the United States and the American people, and he will only accept one that puts America first.
Honestly, that's pretty badass of a statement to make. I really like that Caroline Leavitt and the Trump administration is saying, look, what Iran is feeding you guys is absolute bullshit. You want the truth, you wait for us to tell you. But of course, Iran's going to lie and manipulate things to cause conflict here domestically in the West, right? Within the press and stuff like that. So, I mean, you got to respect it. That's pretty awesome for her to lay out the facts like that, right? Because you've got a lot of media that have been spinning things in different ways. But the real kicker that we're waiting for later today is when President Trump is going to be meeting with NATO, Mark Rutte, later today. Because, I mean, apparently he's going to be discussing NATO withdrawal. Isn't that crazy? Here's what Caroline Leavitt has to say about NATO.
I have a direct quote from the President of the United States on NATO, and I will share it with all of you. They were tested, and they failed. And I would add, it's quite sad that NATO turned their backs on the American people over the course of the last 6 weeks, when it's the American people who have been funding their defense. As you know, President Trump will be meeting with Secretary Rutte in a couple of hours here at the White House, and I know he looks forward to having a very frank and candid conversation with him.
Wow. Can you imagine America pulling out of NATO later today? I mean, what the heck would that do to the stock market? What would that do to the rest of the world? I feel like you'd have potentially more aggression from other places around the world. And then you've got the news that India has received its first shipment of Iranian oil in 7 years.
With respect to the first reporting out of Iranian state media, the president was made aware of those reports before I came to the podium. That is completely unacceptable. And again, this is a case of what they're saying publicly is different privately. We have seen an uptick of traffic in the Strait today, and I will reiterate the president's expectation and demand that the Strait of Hormuz is reopened immediately, quickly, and safely.
Now, this is where it gets crazy, right? Caroline's saying it's opened and there's a flow. But then on Fox News, they had something different to say.
Harris, good morning. We start with breaking news. State media reports that Iran has halted the passage of oil tankers through the Strait of Hormuz after Israeli attacks on Hezbollah in Lebanon. Earlier today, we know 2 vessels were able to go through this passageway. But again, state media is reporting that the Iranians are choking off the strait. I just got off the phone with a senior Israeli official who was sounding the alarm about this action by the Iranians, saying only just a few hours into this ceasefire, the Iranians are already showing that they are trying to leverage their control over the strait and put pressure on global energy trade. And it also comes after reports overnight indicate that an Iranian attack hit Saudi Arabia's east to west oil pipeline, and there was significant damage that was currently being assessed. This is important because this pipeline is the only outlet for Saudi crude exports. And as the Iranians are putting pressure on the strait, they once again are trying to leverage this ability to put pressure on global energy exports. It comes after we got a new statement from President Trump this morning about Iran's nuclear program. The president on Truth Social said the United States will work closely with Iran, which we have determined has gone through what they will be a very productive regime change. There will be no enrichment of uranium, and the United States will, working with Iran, dig up and remove all of the deeply buried nuclear dust. The president referring to Iran's enriched uranium there. And again, a lot of moving parts with this agreement that is very new. We saw overnight new strikes against Iranian oil infrastructure on Lavan Island. This is just off the coast of Iran. A refinery there was reportedly hit in early morning attacks. We don't know which country is responsible for the strikes, but we do know it comes after the Iranians broke the ceasefire hours after President Trump announced it, launching missiles and drones at regional countries and U.S. ally Israel. Here's what it looked like in the skies of Tel Aviv just 2 hours after the ceasefire went into effect.
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy, right? It's crazy. They said that the ceasefire was in effect, and then boom, you got bombs going off, and then you've got, I mean, this is controversial, right? The fact that the Strait of Hormuz is apparently open, but it's still closed. Like, I'm not throwing shade at Caroline Levitt. I'm throwing shade at the media right now, because they're the ones that are really messing with everything. And here's Caroline Levitt being told to her face that, well, there's conflicting information.
Media is saying that Iran has now closed off the Strait of Hormuz today in response to Israeli attacks on Lebanon. What's the White House response to that? And you just listed many military successes. I understand that. But strategically, how is the administration arguing that Iran does not have more economic leverage than it did before the start of the war?
Sure. Well, with respect to the first reporting out of Iranian state media, the president was made aware of those reports before I came to the podium. That is completely unacceptable. And again, this is a case of what they're saying publicly is different privately. We have seen an uptick of traffic in the Strait today, and I will reiterate the president's expectation and demand that the Strait of Hormuz is reopened immediately, quickly, and safely. That is his expectation. It has been relayed to him privately that is what's taking place, and these reports publicly are false.
Caroline.
All right. Well, there you go. Caroline Levitt says that it's false reports, so we're going to run with that, and that's going to be what we're going to focus on moving forward. But I'd like to pass a question off to you. How long do you think the Strait of Hormuz will be opened? How long do you think that Iran will cooperate? How long do you think that Iran could possibly go without trying to enrich uranium? Right? These people are terrorists. Their mission in life is to destabilize other global powers, such as the United States. So is it really something that we can look forward to, where Iran will cooperate with the United States and with Trump, play nice with Israel and surrounding areas? Or is this just smoke and mirrors for something bigger that's possibly inevitable? I look forward to reading your guys' comments down below. Thanks for watching. Hit the like, subscribe, and make sure you tune in. Turn post notifications on. What are we talking about here? Stop wasting time. Click the bell so you can actually be notified, because later today we're going to know if NATO is missing 50% of its funding from the United States. All right. See you later. Bye.